Hey there guys, if you want to support the channel and get access to our exclusive Discord community of Ruler School, which provides tons of great community content, including exclusive game nights, giveaways, and tournaments, go ahead and check out the link down below and consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the video. Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you another New Frontiers feature match for the week. Today I am playing against Josh, who is piloting a Dark Tree, Dark Elves list. A very interesting take on Tree 2, post, everything that happened with rotation and everything else. Very, very fun, very interesting and powerful list. Versus, I am playing Red-White Lumia Pandas, which was a list that I modified based on a list sent to me by my friend from Australia, Adam Valdivia. So obviously the Panda list is really great because it's all about flickering to get a bunch of light orbs, and then flickering with Shin Shin to kind of just keep amassing a board, as well as flickering with the 4-drop that keeps recovering your stones, so you can kind of keep getting more value every single turn. But let's just go ahead and jump right in. I was on the play, hit that reincarnated stone to earth, and then played a gem trader to be able to get my first light stone. Josh is going to play that Dark Elf, the 4/4 that pings us both for a damage, which turns into one milled card for him. This is why Dark Elves are really good, I think, with Tree, is because it just helps them mill out. They don't really care about their life total, so getting pinged for life damage is not a big deal. I'll attempt to swing in for 3. He'll let that happen, so he's going to go ahead and mill 3 cards. So Tree's in a very interesting spot, more than it used to be against aggro, because it doesn't have things like Torching the Timeline or Velsavarian Apparition to kind of help at mass advantage. So decks don't necessarily really need to have to worry about not swinging in. I'm going to play that next light gem trader and then flicker with Lumia to get both guys up and recovered and get another light gem. So already on turn 2, up to 4 light gems, getting pretty good. Usually by the time you hit a Shin Shin combo, you're trying to get pretty much the whole thing, like all your Shin Shins and a bunch of guys all in one turn, which is really nice. He's going to swing with the Dark Elf, and I'll go ahead and pump up my trader with Dreams of Flight, making it a 9/9 so I can kill it and stop myself from taking damage, as well as him milling his own deck. Josh here opting to play the Abdul, which I think is a good call. Oh no, he does decide to play the Rezard. I don't think he maybe had the Abdul and changed his mind. He does have a few creatures RFG'd, so Rezard can be a powerhouse. Maybe he's thinking that if I swing, he lets the swings happen, then his Rezard can just crack me back for a lot of damage. He'll take the damage from the first light trader, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and just flicker it, get another light gem, not trying to make the Rezard too big. And at the end of the turn, he's going to pay 200 life to RFG the Dreams of Flight, so I can't use it again. Which is a good call, especially since I'm leaving so much will open. Calls another stone. Gets another Black Silence. Swings in with the Rezard, and I'm just going to go ahead and RFG it with Zero's Magic Light. I want it off the board. I know he can bring it back, but I'd rather not take all that damage, and the more pressure I put on him with the gem traders, the better. Then he decides to play that Abdul, which is kind of a bummer because a lot of the Panda deck is all about enter effects, and then plays another Dark Elf to start pinging us both. So I'll take one and he'll ping another card out of the way of his deck, which happens to be another Rezard. Swing in for 3. Blocks. I'll cast the Dreams of Flight here from my hand, hoping to roll more than a 1. Unfortunately, I do roll the 1, so it is going to turn into a trade. Swing in with the other one, maybe seeing if the Abdul's going to try to block. But unfortunately, he doesn't, and then I'll go ahead and flicker, which doesn't do me any good because of the Abdul being in the way. You see he gets that second Abdul in hand, which is really not fun, but it's also why I didn't use the Crimson Ray that I have in my hand to just kill the Abdul outright. trying to see whether or not he will play one. If I killed the Abdul right now, it will definitely affect his play if he had a second one in his hand. So I'm trying to keep so there's just one Abdul on the board at any one time, so that I can deal with it with the instant speed stuff, and therefore maybe land a much more satisfactory and oppressive turn. Swings in with the 6. Now I could have been smart here and just tried the Dreams of Flight and possibly gotten above his Abdul and just blocked it, and then if he plays the second one, then I can just still Crimson Ray that one, especially since I can't gain life because of the Yggdrasil. But I'm still comfortable with at least getting one of them out of the way. The more of them that are out of the way, then they're just in a much better position. Another misplay here in the fact that I wasn't really thinking about doing Judgment to try to make the Abdul be bad, so I could have actually cast that Dreams of Flight in the upkeep to try to pump up the Gem Trader, maybe bigger than the 6/6, so that when I bring in Lumia here and flicker the Abdul, I can then just hard punish it and fly over and kill it. He does have that Arla, which is not necessarily as good of a play for me to be dealing with, but he would have to pay life. So I'll try to swing at him in the air for 4. He will go ahead and use his Energize in 1 to bring out the Arla, and then he can just pay 4 life to ping it out of the way. As always, Tree uses its life as a resource, so he's not really too concerned with the idea of having it there. I'll swing for 10 and flicker the Arla, and the reason why I'm doing this is so that if he wants to block in any way, he has to block with the Abdul, which gives me an opening. He just goes ahead and takes the 10 damage, which turns into 10 cards removed from his deck. See, I hit another Abdul there, Final Battle, an Erasure, some of his consistency for Dark Reunion, lots of good stuff. And every release that I see him remove is good, because that means it's one more card that's just permanently gone. So he's thinking here about whether or not to call stones or just stay at 3. He's in a weird spot in the sense that, like, if he does call for stone, he doesn't really have anything in his hand to super progress the board state, but he does have that Final Battle to pretty much clear the board. He also has that Red Riding Hood in his hand, the Dark Red Riding Hood, which is amazing for this deck with Final Battle. Sure, you can't gain life, but you're not really concerned about your life total, so you can just use Final Battle to artificially deflate your life to a point where Little Red just comes in with swiftness, and then you've already cleared the board a massive amount, and then she could just start pinging things to death very, very quickly. Does go ahead and call for stone. He's going to go ahead and swing his Arla into the Lumia. I think the reason for this is because he wants to make sure that he gets enough damage off that Final Battle, because he's concerned that I might have double Dreams of Flight or something else to try to pump it up. And he wants that Lumia gone, because Lumia is definitely a pretty heavy hitter in this situation, especially forcing him to choose between saving his Abdul in order to, or letting the Abdul block if he only plays one creature a turn. So he pays 1 will for the X of Final Battle, and then is deciding how much life he wants to spend here. Now again, he's very curious as to what pumps I might have in my hands, and he's also debating about what life total he wants to be at because of the cards in his hand. Paying to low life also lets him turn on his Dark Elves like Hilda, which then become much stronger. There's lots of different things that kind of play into this element, factor into what's going on. He does decide to pay a total of 2,000, so he'll be doing minus with -11 because of the 1 will that he paid here. Definitely gets it out of the way. I didn't really have any way to pump it. Plays the Rezard. I'm going to go ahead and Crimson Ray the Abdul in the upkeep because I happen to top deck it, which is very helpful. I do miss a trigger here from the Light Stone. I'm still not terribly used to the Light Gemstones, so unfortunately I miss a trigger there, so that's a punishment on me. But with the Abdul gone, I can then play Kame. And this is going to be a really potentially big turn for me because I can go Swiftness, I'll ping him for 2, and then ping him for 5. So I'll get 7 damage in there just off the Rezard. 7 cards out of his deck. And then I can sacrifice the Rezard to also get that off the board and into his graveyard, which is harder for him to revive, and then hit him for another 12 with Kame. So all in all, 20 cards just gone, or 19 cards just gone out of his deck, in a very, very big swing for me. Leaves him very, very low in terms of number of cards, to the point where now I can just start to get aggressive, especially since he has already used a final battle, and if I can grab a Shin Shin, then I can just start getting very, very big very fast, to the point where he just can't keep up. Kame will flicker at the end of turn and have to try to steal something, but there's nothing to steal, so. He's going to use that Heteroclite Excalibur to RFG my Kame. He'll go down to 9 life. And again, he has to decide here whether or not he wants to call for stone, play a creature, or just kind of wait and see which of his corrupted 7 kings he should try to grab from the graveyard or from the RFG. At this point, Rezards would be well over 2,000 damage if they were to connect with my face with just so many cards that are currently removed. However, a full combo right now would be very difficult for him to deal with, simply because if the Pandas come out, there's going to be so many cards, and my life total is still very, very high, so I can take a lot of damage still. Don't miss that Light Stone trigger, thankfully enough. 3 to do a Gem Merchant, or a Gem, yeah, Trader? I think that's Gem Trader. It's either Gem Trader or Gem Craftsman, I think, maybe. Sorry, all the gem cards kind of familiarize myself, and I'm going to use that one to grab a Wind Gem so that I can get the untap Panda to work, and then I'll play a Gem Merchant to get another Light Gem, and then I'll just have to pass the turn. As kind of expected, here comes that really heavy-hitting Rezard. It's very, very powerful, and if I was gonna, try to not die, that would be a card that I have to try to block as much as possible. The other problem here is he does have the Dark Red Riding Hood in his hand, and he is at less than 1,000 life. So that thing is just going to be a powerhouse for 3. He'll be able to bring it in. It has swiftness. He can kill my swing, kill my Gem Craftsman just with the ping effect of Dark Red Riding Hood, and swing at me for this lots of damage. Hits the Demonic Soulstone, which he uses to try to burn some stuff out once he's made a pretty decent board. The little Dark Little Red comes in. Swings for the 7. Pings the Gem Craftsman. I go ahead and Zero's Magic Light it, which I think was probably not the best play. Probably could have just taken the damage from the Little Red, and then hit the Rezard with the RFG, so then I'd be at significantly more life, and be able to make probably a stronger play, plus have the strongest creature on his board just out of the way. Then he's going to go ahead and play that Hilda, which is a 7-drop, or a 700 stat line now. Call for another stone. Miss the trigger again. Play the Discovered to try to draw a card. Thankfully get very, very lucky off that and grab the Shin. So now I'm going to be able to reestablish my board here, going down to 5 gems. Get a Shin, trigger, go down to 3 gems, get a Shin, trigger, go down to 1 gem, get a, grab the Panda that will eventually let me have instant speed barrier, which is pretty nice here. So if I had RFG'd the Rezard instead of the Dark Red Riding Hood, I'd actually be in pretty good shape here. Sure, the Dark Red Riding Hood would be able to deal with 1, but I would be able to take this swing from both Hilda and Dark Red Riding Hood without having to worry about dying. And Josh would be at a point where he would just get cracked back for too much damage and he would be decked out. So kind of a misplay on my part there. That's not incorporating any of the cards that he might have had in his hand. However, it's just with his life being so low, it probably would have been to the point where a final battle would have been irrelevant, and any other card that he may have drawn just wouldn't have been enough. Now I'm stuck into a point where I'm going to have to, unfortunately, block the Rezard with one of my very large creatures, which is just going to put him in a position to be at a much better position if he can set up a blocker while eventually I just run out of steam while trying to deal with multiple Rezards as he reanimates them with Dark Yggdrasil. Goes ahead and calls for a stone. Pays 2 for Fated Reunion. He has 2 darkness creatures, so he just gets to go grab any card that he wants from inside of his deck. At this point, even a single hit from any of my cards just will kill him, so he has to try to deal with all of my creatures all at once. Swings in, I have to block so that I don't die. Plays a release. Grab an Amaterasu's Foresight, which again pushes it to a position where I really can't do anything, because now with the Foresight, if I try to swing into attack, he's just gonna, prevent all the damage, and then again I'll have to try to block with everything in order to try to not die. Attempt to swing in with the Shin, knowing he's got the Amaterasu's Foresight, but I'm pretty in a good spot even with it, because I'll just be able to flicker the Shin here in just a second. In response to the Shin, because I need the stone, I'm going to go ahead and use Jewel Sword. He's not going to block, I know it doesn't matter, but I'm using it to grab the light gem, since Gem Sword gives me a gem of any attribute. And then at the end of the turn I can flicker the Shin and remove 2 counters to get another creature out there, just to help keep me from dying, in a sense, and being able to crack back next turn to finish the game off. Is the hope, anyway. Draw for turn. Unfortunately, he happened to draw into that Dark Red Riding Hood, which is just going to be very, very good for him. My board is probably going to be easily cleared here. In a just very, very crazy way. Deciding what route he wants to kind of take here. He knows that he can't use the Death Touch, at least from the ping from Dark Red Riding Hood, to kill me because of the fact that I have the barrier, so I'll be able to prevent the damage. The Death Touch I can't, from trading with it, is something I can't stop, but he decides to play a bunch of Dark Elves instead to block with the Shin, who will then die. And then pass. So if I draw into a single, if a Zero's Magic Light here, it would have been relevant, but unfortunately I drew into Discovery, so I'm hoping maybe I can get something better off of it. Everybody gets a little bit bigger because of the gaining a gem. Call for another stone. Get another Heat Ray. Attempt to swing in for 10. He just uses Dark Yggdrasil to grab another Rezard, and then at that point it's just game over, because he'll just block with the Rezard, kill it, and then he has too many creatures for the crackback. And the card that I drew after Discovery was Fairy Tale Library of Alexandria, so wasn't going to help me at all there with all my creatures already on board. So we're going to move on to game 2. So once again, I'm going to be on the play. Hopefully this time I have a little bit better shot dealing with the Abduls and a little bit more early game aggression. Call my first stone, awaken Magic Stone the Earth, Gem Trader, get a stone, pass turn. Passes the turn to me after playing the Heaven's Rift and not playing any first turn play. Trigger to get a light gem. Decided it's better to kind of wait and just swing in to get the damage. 3 off the Gem Trader. Hit a Rezard, a Machina, and an Abdul. The Abdul is nice to see gone already. Flicker to get another light gem. Calls for a stone. Gets a Black Silence. Now he has access to all of his colors. Plays the Abdul. At the end of his turn, I'm going to go ahead and Lightning Helix there, so I'm definitely glad that I didn't play the Orphica. Call for another stone. Play Gem Craftsman so that I can get a green gem so I can untap stuff later. Swing in for the 3. Hit another 2 Abduls, so that's 3 of them out of the way already. Or that's all 4 of them out of the way now. Unless he wants to spend a turn doing Release, which would still take quite a bit of time, but it's definitely something that he can choose to do. Speaking of, he decides to go ahead and do it. I think Release is an excellent card in the game right now, especially for decks like Tree that can just, you know, really take advantage of bringing any of their cards back like that. It's free 2 for 1 for only 2 will, and it can just grab anything. I think it's really, really good. I'll go ahead and do the Judgment, especially having 2 Awakened Magic Stones of the Earth. It means my Judgment was essentially 1, which is really nice. Swing in, Flicker the Abdul, deal 10 to him. Kill the Abdul and then swing in for 4 with Gem Trader. So just really big aggression. Getting that, and then I'll play the Orphica to try to flicker my Gem Trader. End of turn, Hoosh comes back in. Get a red source off of her. So now I have 3 stone, different types of gems, so she's now at 10-10. So even more just raw aggression here. And if he decides to final battle, I'll get to search out for a Panda, which is very nice. Especially having Shin in my hand, I could search out for the second Gemblade Emerald so that I could get that Gemblade Emerald off the combo, play another Gemblade Emerald, and then keep going from there. Just gonna go ahead and pay 2 to play 2 of the Dark Elf Snipers. These are the ones that have Death Touch and Swiftness if he controls another Dark Elf. then play Fated Reunion to try to draw a card into his hand. I imagine Final Battle is probably the card he grabs. Draw for turn. With no Abdul on the board, I kind of want to keep ramping up, especially since I have the Shinshins in hand. I want to try to be able to make those plays. So I'll go ahead and call Stone. Get another Awakened Magic Stone the Earth. Swing in for 4 with Orphica. Who will then trade with the Dark Elf. So I'll get to go search for a Panda, so I can grab that Gemblade Emerald. Essentially, I'm trying to build up a hand so that if he does decide to Final Battle, I can then answer it with another very large board, forcing him to have to potentially Final Battle again, which is something he doesn't want to be able to do. I'll play. I'm thinking about playing the Gemblade Emerald. Go ahead and decide to do that. May not have been my smartest move here. Again, I probably should have thought about just the idea of just waiting, because he probably has Final Battle, but sometimes we don't make smart decisions. Play the Orphica here would be nice, because it can help me get the more damage in for my other creatures, because I can flicker his Dark Elf, get his blocker out of the way. And then swing in for 10, and then swing in for 3. Decided to play another trader to get another gem. And not swing in for the 3, which I think was probably a bad call. Again, more rush down is always good. Plays that Final Battle, paying in 1, and then once again deciding how much he wants to pay. He actually decides to pay 3,000 to do a -16 to the board, just in case for some way I had a way to pump everything up much bigger. It also, I think, is a really good excuse for him to try to make a little red active, especially if he has one in his hand, as well as make Hilda and Freya very strong. Not sure if I necessarily agree with it though, as now he really doesn't have a way to Final Battle the Shin kind of combo if it does go off, if I do happen to have it. He's just going to have to deal with the fact that there's all those pandas on the board. He's going to have to ping them individually. He does have the ability to play one Heteroclite Excalibur, and he will have a Rezard, which is a thing. But at the same time, it still feels like it was maybe a little risky to do something like that. Go up to 6 light gems so I can do the Shin combo a bunch of times. Decide to grab a water gem, draw off of the discovery, draw off of the draw for turn, get my stone. And then out comes the Shin combo. Comes a Shinshin into a Shinshin. Into a Gem Knight Emerald, or Gemblade Emerald. Sorry, Gem Knight. Who will then let me recover 4 stones. And then the proper call here probably would just be to play the Orphica that I have in my hand, because then I'd have 2 will. And even better, so I can play the Orphica and flicker the Gemblade Emerald, and then recover even more stones at the end of the turn. So I have access to pretty much everything here, including that Zero's Magic Light if I need it. Again, with the board state kind of being what it is now, he can't really use Final Battle again, so I'm pretty secure that he only can spend 1 Heteroclite Excalibur. Arla's pretty much dead at this point. He's paid too much life. The Dark Red Riding Hood in his hand is a very, very good card for him at this point. He will at least be able to deal with 1, but the problem is my life total is so high that I can pretty much deal with the Rezard. Not only that, but I might have something like Zero's Magic Light in hand to just deal with the Rezard, or to get a blocker out of the way, so he has to be really careful here how he protects his field, his deck, from being decked out by my field of 10 10s and 12 12s. Once again, I have no reason to not take the damage off of that Dark Rezard. My life total is way high enough, and I do have Zero's Magic Light if I need to. He's going to pay 4 life, which takes him down to 600 to be able to deal an additional 2 damage, which takes me down to 26 damage off the Rezard. But again, I'm in a position where pretty much a single turn of Crackback from my board isn't going to be enough to finish him off. He does decide to play this Red Riding Hood, which I think is probably the right call. He can at least get rid of 1 creature and put me in a pretty weird board state. It's definitely something he needs to do. It's not super relevant because, yeah, he'll be able to kill 1, but at the same time I can just choose to take the damage from that as well. And there's enough on the field pretty much to be able to crack back and kill him. So he has to be very careful here. He's going to kill one of the Shinshins, which I'm totally fine with. Choose to trade with the Gemblade Emerald, which also maybe kind of was a weird play here, especially knowing that I do have the Zero's Magic Light, but I may be seeing what else I can get out of here. He goes ahead and plays Heteroclite Excalibur, which just clears the other Shinshin off the board. This is what I'm talking about. I could have just as easily waited and just taken the damage from the Dark Red Riding Hood, and then I would have had a ton of crackback damage, whereas now I have to kind of play this catch-up game. For recovery, I'm going to go ahead and cast Discovery. Get a Darkness Gem. I have all 5 colors now, just in case I draw into a profitable transaction, because I do play them in the deck, so I'm wanting to maybe see what I can do with that. Pay 4 to play Kame. Steal his Rezard. Hit him for 2, and then hit him for 6 more off the Rezard if he chooses not to block. So if I had 1 more will here, it'd actually be at a pretty interesting spot, because I'd be able to sacrifice it and then use Zero's Magic Light to block the Death Touch guy if he happens to try to block with it, which would pretty much just guarantee lethal here. But now I'm in this weird position where I have to choose whether or not I just force the swing, force the trade, and clear the board, or if I try to just hold on to Kame, just sacrifice the Rezard for the fun of it, let him keep his Death Touch guy. It's a very interesting, very different, unique situation here. Knowing that he's only at 10 cards puts him very low. decides to take the damage here. Again, I could do either one, where I could just choose to sacrifice and keep one up, flicker the Orphica, and then flicker out his Dark Elf. Or I could choose to and just make it so he can't use it and keep my Kame around, forcing him to have even more answers. Or I could try to swing in with the Kame. You know, there's lots of different ways I could do it. Probably the best move here would be to just sacrifice the Rezard and then use Orphica, because then what happens is Orphica enters the field and forces the Dark Elf to leave his field into the end of the next turn. But I'd rather just force him to be only at 2 cards and make the trade and have Orphica be by herself. I also forget to flicker here with Lumia, which is a misplay, definitely not intentional. Doesn't really cause a ton of issue here, thankfully, but it technically is a mistrigger warning, so just things to be mindful of. Lumia is a mandatory, and I did have arrested creatures, so Orphica would have to be flickered. Pays 2, plays a Hilda. A lot of other cards in his hand, and does have access to Dark Tree. The weirdness is here he does have the Melkus in his hand, and he has no way to cast it. And he only has 1 turn left to potentially kill me, so I have to kind of decide whether I just kind of sit back and wait, because if he can't kill me on his next turn, then I can just draw a Cullstone, pass, and he'll deck out. Because if he can't draw a card for his card for turn, he loses the game, and that's how you beat Dark Tree. So at this point, I'm trying to kind of see if he maybe has an Amaterasu's Foresight potentially in his hand. If he doesn't have an Amaterasu's Foresight in his hand, or like if I see all of them in the RFG, then I can just say, okay, well, we're done here. Swing with the Orphica. I've got the Zero's Magic Light in hand to deal with any blocker. Move on. But I only see 2, and I'm not sure how many the deck plays, so it's actually safer for me to just not swing in with Orphica. So instead, I'm just going to form up a little bit of a blocker wall here. I have the Panda, so I can give him barrier if I need to, as well as potentially use the Zero's Magic Light once I call for Stone. I also would like to apologize, because by now I'm sure you're noticing that the table is sliding a little bit up. The camera rig was a little bit loose, so it started to slide down during this and the next game. The only thing you really lose is kind of the top of his graveyard in my stone deck a little bit, but just want to apologize for that. It won't happen again in future videos. Brings out the Rezard, which is the optimum call. It forces me to have to be able to answer it, otherwise I just lose. If he happened to draw into if the last card in his deck happened to be a little red, he'd be in really good shape. Swings in for the damage. Wondering what that thing's stat line is. Decide to just go ahead and block with the Orphica. I think the only Panda I have left in my deck at this point is another one of Diamond, who can give me barrier. But again, it doesn't matter if he can't kill me this turn. I can just draw, call Stone, and pass, and win by deck out. Swings with the Hilda. I'll go ahead and block with the Diamond. There's no reason not to, because if he tries to like pump it up or something, I still have the Zero's Magic Light, as well as being able to make it barrier. So whatever he might possibly be able to have there, I don't think I'm going to take any damage from this. So, block with the Diamond. He doesn't have any way to stop it, nothing instant speed in his hand, so Hilda's just gonna die. That might be Freyla, Zafira. I think it's still Hilda. Two Dark Elves kind of get confused a little bit, and then he just says, well, I can't do anything else. If he had happened to draw under the Burnstone, maybe he could have done something, but unfortunately he wasn't going to be able to, so he just knows he just decks out. And we move on to game 3. So I am going to be on the draw here, finally, in this match. Hoping again to have a good starting hand to be able to deal with Abduls. Decide to keep all 5. Set Demonic Soulstone first turn. Lays out the guy who's going to ping us both for 1. Gets to Mila Machina. Play once again my first turn play of Gem Merchant. Get a stone, or get a gem. Calls his second stone. Swings at me for 4. I'm going to go ahead and take that 4 damage. There's no reason for me to block at this point. Plays an Abdul. I don't really like to see, but I do have a profitable transaction, so if I can find a way to get a fire gem, I can still deal with it. I do have a discovery in my hand as well, which is very nice. Call for stone, get another Awakened Magic Stone the Earth. Play Discovery, get that fire gem, so now I can use profitable transactions if I need to draw a card and get that Abdul out of the way. Also see I have a Zero's Magic Light, which is very nice. Go ahead and just pass. I don't want to risk giving Severing Winds, so I'm not going to try to swing in right now and then maybe trick him out of the block with the profitable transactions. And I know he plays the Severing. I'd rather just use it as a free blocker. There's another Dark Elf, so now we're going to be taking 2 damage a turn each. Plays a Faded Reunion, so he can draw any card he wants and put it in his hand. Probably a final battle or another Abdul to back up the one he currently has. Would be my bet. At the end of his turn, I'll use that profitable transactions by burning my fire gem to get the Abdul off the board. Call for a stone, get a light gem. Go ahead and spend my energize here. Gonna steal his Dark Elf, and then swing it into his other Dark Elf and ping him for 2. So this is nice here. I get to get 2 cards RFG'd. I unfortunately give him a Rezard. I clear his 2 creatures off the board. I've got the Kame. It's lots of good stuff here for me. Try to reestablish that board state with Kame. He's very, very hard to kill, and his life total is nowhere near enough. And spending 2,000 life just to kill 1 creature seems a little suboptimal for Josh at this point, so I'm feeling pretty good. Again, Josh has to decide here whether or not he wants to call for stone. He knows he has access to that Rezard, or if he wants to try to use Dark Tree to start bringing stuff back. At this point, Rezard's not a terribly big threat, but after he takes 10 damage from that, 12 damage from that Kame, it could be potentially very, very big. Plays another Dark Elf. He's gonna start pinging himself and me. Call for a stone. Once again, miss my light gem trigger. For those of you keeping track, I believe that's 3, so it's a game loss. Thank you very much. Hit him for 2. If we were playing in a tournament, this is why we don't miss triggers, people. He's going to bring that Rezard back, who is very strong at this point, strong enough to be a trade. He's going to pay 200 life to remove another one. So it's big enough to be a trade, and then I'll go ahead and just remove it again from the game using Zero's Magic Light so that the 10 damage goes through. Again, I'm trying to rush him down here a little bit. So I want him to, especially trying to get rid of final battles and things like the Abduls and stuff like that. Just trying to get as much damage as possible in as fast as possible. Play the Gem Trader, get another Gem Merchant, Gem Trader, get another thing. I'll steal his Dark Elf, and then I'll immediately sacrifice it to Kame because of the flicker of Kame with Lumia. Again, clearing the board and putting him in a pretty precocious board state where he has to decide which direction he wants to go, call stones, or try to be able to grab things like Rezard. That's the thing about Dark Trees, if you can rush them down fast enough, especially if their hand is a little suboptimal, like not having final battles. Unfortunately, he has a final battle, so it's a little irrelevant. You can actually put them in a pretty tough spot where they're just going to be really low on stones, because they have to rely on Dark Yggdrasil to be able to bring out their creatures that can have any real impact, or have to completely tap out to be able to play things like Red Riding Hood, who are even then suboptimal until they've done a big spell like Final Battle, paid 20 life to put their life down to a point where it matters. He's also at a position here where he has to decide whether or not he wants to just play an Abdul this turn. If he plays an Abdul this turn, he can call for stone, but if he doesn't play an Abdul, I could just Shin combo off, which would be very bad for him. He does decide to play the Abdul, which I think is probably the smartest call. Calls for stone to get that light stone, because again, we're playing as friends, so I'm okay with him, you know, remembering to call that stone. Judgment with Lumia, flicker the Abdul, hit him for the 10. Play another gem, won't get the trigger off of it, but I'm still trying to put creatures on board. At this point, I believe at least 2, if not 3 of his final battles are gone. So right now, he's able to use Dark Yggdrasil, he wants to, while also establishing a little bit of a board presence. Plus he has that Abdul, which is very, very nice to be able to stop me from comboing off. If I do happen to get something nice, though, I can potentially just clear it out of the way completely. Especially knowing that I play things like Crimson Ray, so he's got to be kind of careful here. Plays the Hilda, and just decides to pass the turn so that he can get access to Rezard. Which is a smart play. Once again, I'm going to try to put him in a position where he's got to try to deal with the Lumia. Decides not to block with the Hilda, takes 10 more damage. He's at 20 cards left in deck at this point. So he can only take 1 more potential swing from there. There's the other 2 final battles gone, so I'm safe from final battles, or at least so I think, without him taking a very long, a lot of his turn to be able to answer it. Play a Orphica, and then pass the turn. Point of the Orphica is so that, again, even if he does decide to spend a turn during final battle, he at least gives me a card out of it. So he's got to make kind of the choice as to whether or not it's worth it to use a release on the final battle. He is also at the point where drawing cards is not necessarily good, because he is very low on life, and just like one swing can just put him out of this. Or he is very low on cards, so one swing can just put him in deck out range. He does have the release in hand though, which is very, very nice. Little Red's a little dead in his hand right now just because he doesn't have anything to use it with. Pays 2 for the release. Decides to grab the final battle. Taps himself out and pays 14 life to be able to use, or 16 life to be able to do final battle for the full 20 damage, or for the full -10/-10. Killing the Lumia, letting me get a creature out of it. Unfortunately, my life total is such though that if I let that Resard swing with me, he just kills me. So I have to use the Zero's Magic Light that's in my hand, and the problem there being that then I can't like do something like Shin next turn to reestablish. If I had a Crimson Ray in my hand, or if I had the ability to do like profitable transactions or something like that, or if I was able to kill the Abdul one turn sooner, I think I would have been in probably a pretty good shape here. Unfortunately though, it's just not the case, and it's gonna be a struggle uphill, even if I get that thing removed, just because he could keep hitting me for damage with the Abdul and potentially the Hilda, if he decides to swing in. I think he's at a point now with that Red Riding Hood being very, very effective. Being in only 2 life, he's still gonna get a lot of value out of it. Swings in for the full damage with the Hilda. Takes me down to 17 or 18. Now Josh is in a position where he has creatures on board to be able to poke me, and if I try to play creatures next turn to serve as a blocking wall, he can just use his Heteroclite Excalibur, or he can't use the Heteroclite. He can use the Dark Red Riding Hood to just get them out of the way, and keep pinging in for damage. Just have to play the Gem Merchant, or the Gem Craftsman and an Orphica. Neither of whom gets to do anything, but they do serve as 2 blockers, which is nice. Dark Red Riding Hood comes in. Swings and kills the Gem Craftsman with her pinging effect. Take the 10, deciding whether or not I want to pluck with Orphica yet. Decide my only way out of this is to try to hope for a miracle, so I'm going to go ahead and take the 7 damage. Take the 7 from Hilda and go down to 4. Now, if I was Josh, I'd probably still just swing in with the Abdul here. The problem is he knows that I play Fairy Tale Library, so he has to be very, very careful here. Because if I have Fairy Tale Library and enough small dudes, I can just push him out and deck him out real fast. So having more than 1 blocker is probably to his advantage. So he's just going to hold up the Abdul there. He's just thinking whether or not he wants to play a card before his turn. He doesn't end up playing a card before his turn with Yggdrasil. Just passes to me. Sorry about the fade there. We readjusted the camera. So it goes to me, and I say, let's just go ahead and go to combat. Let's see what happens. I'll swing for 4. He's only got 6 cards left in his deck. I'll swing for the 4 damage. Before we move into blockers, he uses Yggdrasil's effect. And this is the point where the game is over, because he makes the right call. The right call here is to target the Arla with Yggdrasil's effect, because he properly gauged the fact that I did have the Dreams of Flight in my hand. If he had grabbed Rezard, then in response I would have made Orphica flown over him and just punched out his deck. But because he played the Arla, unfortunately the Arla is just going to be able to block it. Go in and grab a Panda, which unfortunately can't recover anything, which is really unfortunate, because he has the Abdul still. I have already called for a stone. I start to grab it, and then I go, wait a minute, I think I've already called for a stone this turn. Don't worry about it. You guys just didn't see that because of the cut there, edit there. And then I just realized that, oh man, because you're smart and you grabbed the right card, there's no way for me to kill you here. So I'll be like, well, I'll make the play anyway. I'll play, and I tap this in the wrong order. Pay the 3 for the Gem Craftsman, play the Fairy Tale Library, call human, swing in. He blocks with the Abdul, and that's the end of the game, because I just know that I'm dead with no way to be able to stop him. So, excellent game all around. Thank you so much for Josh for playing it, and for my buddy Adam for sending me the list. Hope you guys like it. Deck profiles will be up later this weekend. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share out the video to your friends so they can kind of see all the fun stuff that's going on. And until next time, this is DMO73 signing off.